che gerchita chi gore taina korta manchi se koser tijan len anda mish tani nga so gonzi sharo aso tani tring nga so George tata nyomala tani kangi chonser ta tani karla gore della donling nyamli chesti korta George tere.
Yes, so today our topic is how our problems arise from the disturbing emotions and what kind of method we can rely on in order to avert or in order to eliminate this, the cause of these problems.
Asa teniti George tenge kani lengi sinango bola joko sashi nala litanyo moza pita litanyo monatoli te tachuli chupan tomba yikinga prenjer sini sholo kachiore o teje jache.
Yes, so today's topic is going to be based upon the verse of the Ariana Gaujana from the Middle Way treatise, Middle Way treatise, in which he writes in one verse, ceasing of karma and disturbing emotions leads to liberation. Karma and disturbing emotions arise from fabricating thoughts. These in turn arise from elaborations. Elaboration sees through the discriminating awareness, realizing emptiness.
Laso teni sholoka chikti tonda ta kar resina litanyo moza pitarze ondi ko nazo ko ali tartabi resina tartabi resiti tartab tal kar che ko resida le tanyo mon base sona teni ko ali tandro resini sholo quand on tonda te tere.
Yes, so what is the first sentence represents? What is the meaning of the first sentence? Ceasing of karma and disturbing emotions leads to liberation. So it means that there is a way to be liberated. There is a way to reach liberation. So what is the way? The way is to extinguishing karma and the disturbing emotions. This is the way.
No, tani tangan so nyomon likangi chontan de zero tip sikani pan te male or litanyon mon naftoli se ondi. Ta nyomon gwangi ngaso le kangi chontan rawo te kandi che wore zeti tangaso Leta nyomungo wangi kange to chongo yores leta nyomungo wangi kange chonata nyomungo wangi kange mombochi chonde atna su parche deshi mombochi gyamo gore mi tspa kontro zavi kapsa se make pazoni kange chizo rama ke pazo jama ke pazo gore ani do chap te kapsa yan tagaran se ba make pa rama ke pa jama ke pa tenaj chato ta ngargertan sem nala so patentri saulon ramandale on dituni semba make pa ta kange mombochi
Yes, so as for karma and disturbing emotions, so we know from our experience what kind of problems arise from the disturbing emotions. So karma arises from the disturbing emotions, and the problems that arise from the disturbing emotions, so we can we can recognize it by our own experience. So for example, when we get angry, so we know how it disturbs our mind and it disturbs others and create problems for us and as well as for others. And we know also when we have a very big attachment, so also all different kind of troubles that it makes in our life. And also we can kind of generalize it to other kind of disturbing emotions such as arrogance, jealousy, and so forth. So all these we can recognize through our experience.
Tani nyomon dramanda ke ondi kati nga so samba ma ke pata tani yanzo gorela tani nyomon tu wangi leze at nga so nacho nang shapi leze at saungore le tu tani atsende inari tsechma inari tani kange mombochi tani pati te tachulishtu pas ondi ma kange mombochi te chichi nintan le chasha na jete le yon gore zegore nyomon wangi le ta sa le wangi tani aso kange mombochi.
So based on by the power of disturbing emotions and our mental affliction, so we can also say that it makes us unhappy, and also in terms of this life and future life, so it generates karma, like by the force of the disturbing emotions and affliction, so karma arises, and the karma, it makes us problems by every mean.
Tani le wong pena kewa le yondi kewa chi le yondi ko le tacho ni ro jakare ma to nga so wan cha ji yo ma re pena mele ke na ri ten ro le ke na ri nga so thong sa ni te ma ton ten ro thong de wo ta man thong sa na chu go nya wa she go re ye ta she go re la she go re ta to so ka kien ro go na nga so wan cha chu ni yo ma re.
Yes, and as for the karma, so whether like if even if we take rebirth, so it's not under our control. It's totally under the power of the karma that we have. So under the power of the karma that we have, so we take rebirth, whether as the forms of lives that we can see, whether it's human or animals, or also other forms of lives which we cannot see and are presented in the Buddhist philosophy, such as hell beings, hungry ghosts, gods, and so forth.
So tani te maze amandra wachili ke na yanga polike ko sa ta pomolike ko sa ta lombantle ko sa ta yo ta chi lamba ya poke ko sa wa chi banju chimbo na ke ko sa tani wa cha chi ga me at so ta ki ta so nga so nyam yo go chbo de ta ron me ni ke yo ta so nyam yo go chbo de.
Yes, and also whether we think, oh, I want to be reborn as a boy, as a girl, to have nice appearance, to have nice looking, to have this and this amount of wealth and so forth. So we can say from our experience that this is something that we don't have we don't have any kind of control over it, like what kind of type of rebirth we are going to take.
Tani tani ke al ran me wa ta ta so na chu ge na so le bu ma nyomo ni ya te so na nam tor he zeni nam tor chwa la tini nyomo chwa la tini le sa le wong tini na so ran me pa ke wa ta na chu ge tini she go re ta chen ke yang ko ring de chum ra chi ke yang re zeni she ndo ta ran me pa na so ha ko te go re chen ke na ko chi korkam che anda wa chi ke tini chan re ze ya chi ma ta ran me ta chen ke ya ka ko yo ra a zo me kan ke go ta so ran me ta ka ko go re ta ko so ran chong ge zin de tong chi zin ra me ran de ya ken che tong chi ke che ndo she ndo ta kyan ra me.
Yes, so therefore, like we take rebirth based on the karma, and we don't have any kind of control or power over it. So the karma is being generated or arisen based on the disturbing emotions that we have. The disturbing emotions, in turn, they are coming based on the fabricating thoughts. So this is the presentation of the Buddhist philosophy, the manner in which we generate the disturbing emotions based upon the karma and based upon like we uncontrollably, so we take rebirth and have different kind of results. And also the scientists, they also present a similar type of presentation about how kind of creatures are being created in terms of certain possibility of substances and so forth. But this is, we mainly talk now about the presentation of the Buddhist philosophy.
So tani ta lang par de yon nenga chimbo chi ta nga so de za chi ni ling phombo ze ya de kyon chimbo chi she go re za chi ni ling phombo ze ya de len cha ni zong de tu gang mombo chi ta na ya cha ya ta na ni ma re re le ka lang zhou chi na ten sum zhou ni zhou ka la chi za ma de na ko za wa ni ni zo ma to ta ni chi cha de yo re ta te kyo yin ba nga so ha de de gang ni mombo chi 제와 갖고 오래다 딜링아서 카트도 오 말이 카운터 데이터 냠데 디고 나로 남게 처왔던 지도 자진예린 본부도 정칸으로 지다 나로 저도 디나르스 데니 정칸나르스 데니 데이터 페티 자와니 카트서 오늘 텔레팀비 강에 참아용아요 말다 딜링아서 카트 때문에 받는지 차대오래 카트 자진예린 본부인데 매나가서 Chokoto ayo ma za go mar che go ma so na chunal shia chi re zmen kam li ya ke so na zisha ke tan da za chi ni pombo ta cherto yo mar ta na sun ti zuki pombo ta cherto a koron kala ta so choni za mo ko ma se koron kala ta so za mo ko tendi yo re tendi chi yo na nga so kan mo bo chandro za ro.
Okay, so one very, very big fault that we have that we need to recognize is the 5 contaminated appropriated aggregates that we have, like basically the aggregates, the physical and the mental aggregates that we have. So these kind of aggregates, so they are very, very big problem for us. So what is the reason? The reason is that based on these aggregates, so we experience a lot of different types of problems, whether we are hungry, whether we are thirsty, whether we are being sick, being painful, and so forth. So all of these are very big problems that we have. And another kind of characteristic of these aggregates that we have is that we cannot be separated from them. And wherever we go, we have these aggregates. We also can think about it just like as someone who is in prison. So someone who is in prison, he cannot be liberated from this prison. And if he can be liberated from this prison, so he will have this kind of freedom. So this is the same situation that we have with the aggregates. If we'll be liberated from this aggregate, so we won't have to experience all these different kind of problems that we enumerated.
So then that you can move to lead the other time, so you don't meet some in Shasha changing Chunian Raw Chinita, Magetani on the night, Kanio, that Tamashandro, that so Yeshashan Chiliore, that the Yeshasha on this one, you should then do Telekipachi. That Namagoa, Shimagoa, then you just go on your Kiwali Magoa, then you tablam chindues and Korongo Gom Kipachi, Tinjita, Tamalatini.
Yeah, so all of these kind of problems that we just mentioned, so these kind of problems that we kind of all know and all kind of use to these problems of the aggregates that we have, the physical aggregates and the mental aggregates, we all use them, we all know them. But what Buddha Shakyamuni did, he tried to examine whether there is a method that can eliminate all the problems that are entailed by having these types of aggregates, such as getting sick, dying, taking another rebirth, and so forth. So he really tried to find whether there is kind of solution or method in order to eliminate this problem. So then what he did is to find this type of method, and he presented it. And this is something which is very essential in the Buddhist philosophy.
So Tani, Tanda Yomo became a shitapter Tamra, Mundra Hajan Son Yori, Mombo Son Yori, Tatiran, Sama Jetoaji or Marta, Tandanga Tashi Tama, Teta Truly Chupan, Tomba Niking up and Jerizia, Ko Tingo in Geshe Rangrig Dorje, on Dingazo, late on Yomo go on Vinko Island Corte or Loton Yomo, not on Jamandali Chongundus, not Tokotsavat, Ranchins and that dance and tele two shas. Then the Ranchins and dance and the Mepache Sonsona. Any than quality Taushi the Teresha, Tele Tombani Gondu, somebody.
Okay, so there are a lot of different explanations and methods in order to eliminate or to extinguish the problems that arise from disturbing emotions. But today we are going to talk about the main one, which is presented in the verse that we just mentioned at the beginning of the class of Nagarjuna. So, as the verse says, so the karma, so all the problems, they arise from the karma, like taking rebirth and all the problems that entailed in our life experience. Karma in turn come from affliction. Afflictions, like disturbing emotions, in turn, they come from fabricating thoughts. And fabricating thoughts, in the verse it says elaborations, but here we can also understand it as that it comes from the root cause of the suffering, which is the self-cherishing attitude and the self-grasping mind. So these are the root cause of samsara. And what is going to negate this cause? What is going to eliminate these causes? As is presented in the verse, this is the discriminating awareness, realizing emptiness. So by this type of mind, we can eliminate the root cause, which is the self-grasping ignorance.
Quand Sangier Masson, we cable Yomombi, Zavani Katecha Sondatedi, Gege Landochata control Lanso by the Dinner Lanso Pachon di Carchico, Tinji Tal Magistucini, Tinji Katechani, Rambani Ninja was a good at Rimbachi Shena and Tinji Opinonitri, Tate initial taste and Geshe Gatona, Tomata, Tomba Nika Quartal Chigina. Tanato Tomba Yense at the Carriage Jegorezity. Nato Nabjung dances the Tombani cathedral, Tombani Topishiro cathedral, Danzen Laori, Danzen ze the Atacaziti. Nato Kinson, Yota Tomba, Yonset Tombo, Nga, they are tenny levendus, Roa, so that our chimbo chicheva lateni, Tangaldi Kungali, Mugos in Goya Mombo, Chichato Toma, so our chimbola chin in Dochatani Yungudus, Ani, so our chimbo cheva lateni, Pashoni. Dingal Chimaso, the control on Gandus. Ani, so Tawa Chimbocheva Lateni, that Tingali Yar is of the Chatoche, Tingali ta nga tili yonde cha yo sa ni ngar ges ke wa ta tri la so pa tsama ta nga zia so so sa chimbo tini chong yo so sa ta nga sa chimbo zia ti me pa so go ndu zini tini ma she wore.
So we are going to present the method in order to eliminate the root cause of the suffering and all the problems that we have, which is the self-grasping mind, the self-grasping ignorance. So the self-grasping ignorance is being eliminated by the wisdom or discriminating awareness, realizing emptiness. So this type of self-grasping mind that we have is grasping at the sense of self, in which in turn is going to create all the other problems that comes out of it, such as the disturbing emotions of attachment, which based on it we are going to have problems, and also having the anger because he did like this and this to me, having jealousy because in comparison to him he is like that and I am like that. This sense of the grasping at the I is going to create and to lead to all the other type of problems and disturbing emotions.
Last tani tindi tomba ni zia ki pa che ton kan jezina ta nga ta tsawa chimbo shu chi che wo nga so nam jin che na nga ze ti chi ngal no pa che son nga ze ni ta ran ja no pa chen ke se ri ta shi no pa che son zi ta ran ja re tini no pa chen ke ta shi to pa tsi ya za ta no pa che sa nga ta pa tsi ni yang jo tini pa jip cha che ya tin lam so to yo ma ri nam ji kin so na che na nga ta chi sa lo tang ke yo ma ro.
Yeah, so usually this sense of grasping at the I, so we experience it in the daily life, such as, for example, when someone is going to hurt us. So who is being hurting? This is the I. Who is being hurt? This is the I. Who is hurting me? This, for example, Tashi or John is the one who hurts. So we kind of really assume it very, very naturally that, oh, this is Tashi, this is me, he's hurting me, but we don't have the sense of trying to ask him like who is the I which is being hurt and so forth.
The songs that are dark yongore, not you share now, dark at pena, and also the record the pondishina, Naze on the new Zuki Pombo and Narendu down, Yana, Nizuki Pombo and Narendu down, Yanani, Namshi Pombo, some lot and Narendus, Yana Tilly lost an Nari, Nachindus, and Tombo, Tenjik Savlotan, Teni. Zuk pombore samna zupo chashi ni re ni saulo chi tonda ngandem dere sam gunzu zu sa chinga so pache rakamare nabje nga so no chuno atrisha lo lhanki ga no ni la pa ta ni ngo ta ni kam ba ta chi zeni ngai yin zia ta mangde ngai yin zia ngo zeni ta nga kam ba zeni ti za yo ma responsa nga so lo lhanki ngo ni shena kam ba ta la pa ta ngo ta zupo chashi la so pa ngai sam ki pache yo ma re zewur.
Yes, so therefore what we need to do, so we need to search for this kind of I, which we usually assume so naturally that it is like that I that we talk about a lot. So this I, so we need to examine like where it is. We need to look and search for it. So when we look and search for it, we can examine it through 3 points. So the first point is looking through our physical body. Where is the I? The second point is trying to examine and looking for it within our mind. And the third point is trying to look whether there is some kind of I which is separated or different from the different in nature from the body, from the aggregates that we have, the mental and the physical one. So if you are going through the first point and trying to look for this I in the physical body, so if you are going to examine and look at the different organs of the body, at the different parts of the body, eventually we won't be able to point on any kind of we won't be able to point on the body and say this is the I. And also something which is also presented in the Buddhism is that even naturally within our mind we have like this kind of natural thought, this very innate thought that we won't say I am the body. Like we won't, when we talk and when we think, like we won't say I am the body. We will say this is my leg, this is my hand, this is my head. But we won't say I am leg or I am head, I am hand. So even naturally we will say this is my head, but not I am head.
Also, teni che ondi ngazo ziki pombo ngazo na ki to ajiga yo at so the parche ngari sam ke parche yo mari tam che sa chi ku so so samlo ta ngai sare samni tenji samlo ta ni chi yore ta samlo te ampa jip cha che jona joki kare saulo tawa tango ne wo nyango saulo tanga ta no le saulo le do cha ta control ta ngar ker ta shirap ta wala so pandra manda chi yo yondi ti no le ti sona ya ta ngandere samsan chi parche ti sara kamari jadani lo la ke le ngi na kyo ngi samlo zi chi yondi ti tili losse nga chi yo sha ma to tanga yi sam ki chi ta parche mere ta yana pa ti sona no nda saulo nda manda mombo chi yore te lo zia te yan do chi mai mbanda manda chi ti no li ngares samsen ro chi si sar recommendo si ra.
Yes, now and if we are going to the second point. So as for the first point, by searching the eye in the physical body, so when we try to search for the eye in the physical body, so most of the people, most probably they won't say that the eye is the physical body, but a lot of people will say, yes, the eye is the mind, the eye is the mental continuum and so forth. So then we'll look whether the eye is the mental continuum. So when we look at the mental continuum of the mind, so we can see that there is the mind which I had this morning, there is the mind which I have this evening, and also within these types of mind that I have during the day. So I have very different kinds of mind. I have like mind which grasps at things like by terms of view, disturbing emotions, positive mental factors. We have different types of mind and mental factors. So all during the day, and therefore we won't be able to, when we look upon all these different types of mind, we won't be able to pinpoint one certain type of mind and say like that, this is me.
That's what it is. So that nga zeni so nam ki tsawa chimbo che de at rang pombo te are me rang shipa te ame na ta ti loshi chi yo sare ta ti ni loshi chi yo na pombo ta ko ngo thata pinga chi yo re to pombo ta ngo chi pinga chi yo re pombo ta ngo thata pinga chi yo na so diglo na je pombo shal jani nga so shalon ro ta ya tenji chi ni so kata ni at shoni diglo ko na je pombo na le tsinza tenji ne se yon ko ala teni tsawa ni yo markati na nga so lo nga zia tangi pombo to shkeni ma shi par de kata ta me so za ngo thata big nga chi me at de ha ko ndu sira.
Yes, so therefore this this that we cherish all the time and we talk about all the time, so we say that we cannot find it not in the physical body and also not in the mental aggregate that we have, not also in the mind. So now we need to look to the third point, whether we can find that I by whether we can find that I which is different by nature, which is different by its essence from the aggregates that we have. So if you are going through this point, and if this is what we assume, so we have to accept such a situation in which that I is like, for example, if you give a situation, so that I is like someone who is using the clothes, which are the aggregates, and just can leave them for a moment and just go to someplace else, somewhere else. So it will have to have this kind of consequence, and also this kind of consequence, such as the aggregates are like the home or like the house of the I, and I just go out from the house and just travels around and so forth, and then can come back. But this is not the case. Why it's not the case? It's not the case because we cannot, from the birth up until death, so we cannot be separated from the aggregates that we have. This is very clear.
Last teni tse yondi ta pombo lingo tatapi pombo dama imbache nashi dama imbache pombo lingo tatapi dachi ameona ta dazeati yona nashi ta pombo la so pingo chipachi yo pondus ta mo chipachi yona yonteni taki ngeni pombo ta nashi ta zonal tsitsati rayo ma sonzani tenji pombo ta nashi ta solichu ngaso na gyeng sam de zong de ngi yin sin ni dao pon ro che de ni pa chi tsu to pa ga ten chi da chi tu pa si so na sa wa ni ne recommendus te mara na tel da me pa ji pi tar ni te ja ge ore tel nyam nyong ko ka ti na lo ko mi so na ani nga zin ni sa wa chim bo ka ti na chi ma ti ni nga zin ni sa chim bo lo to ma shi chong rin ro ja ge ore ze ore.
Yes, so therefore we couldn't find it not within the body, not within the mind, and not as an I which is different by nature from the aggregate. So then we'll have to search whether the I is identical by nature with the aggregates. But also when we'll have to try to examine it and to look for it in that manner, so we won't find it because as we examined before, we cannot find it not within the body and not within the mind, right? So therefore we cannot also posit any I or any me which is identical by nature to the aggregates. And therefore this kind of understanding on realization, this kind of understanding have the term of understanding of selflessness. So understanding of selflessness is going to help us in terms of decreasing the intensity of the grasping at the I that we always talk about, since we cannot find any kind of independent or the boss, the one who owns this aggregate. So since we cannot find this, so it's going to decrease immensely the grasping at the I and the self-cherishing mind.
Last thing, that the data mess on the not the petty mere in a that's how you should and the temporary canyon the patsams in it and the tiny jagundu tam durdina, sound or pombo and abshit to palatina, they as you low, but tapats a topi partas in Itania. Or the new Dutch mongata, says on a Zavani metacho race.
Says on a
says on a partipacini, but says on a maratas. Your revisina, Tangazo de Tuangus and Yon de Viore, taking your iori, dingan your iori, Mukanton iori, how much your sons are. Yon your touch your rate, says on and many sons, says on a many pala, Tombany Kisha, the Teja Gorita, Temdragon on the use it, Temdrata, Tombany, they are Tanya to Tinile and Gore. You are the Temdraji, then a many but Tombari.
Yes, so therefore, this is the presentation of the selflessness, but then something that also Buddha Shakyamuni presented is the presentation of dependent origination, interdependence. And through the interdependence, we can ask, so whether there is no I after searching and examining for the I, so whether there is no I, so the answer will be that yes, based on the interdependence, there is an I which is merely imputed based on the aggregates. The physical and the mental aggregates and so forth, that is merely imputed upon them, which is seeing, which is feeling suffering, happiness, and so forth. So through the interdependence, there is an I that is by examining through interdependence, there is an I which is merely imputed on the aggregates. But by trying to examine where is the I, by trying to examine the I and searching and looking for it, so we cannot find it. And this is what is called emptiness or the selflessness.
Also, Tani Tombany Kachatali Egyptian, which is the Catonic or Master Jomezenita. So Yamyo Yosachi, not much Jeto Marize or so Yamyo message that the Ligeto Mundutam Dordina, Takinajin, Dochaki, Vicas, Chitangal, the Tangalgo, the Langalgo, the Saulo Terlini, Dochali, or controls that teaching no patches on chick. They Ticavla, Carasavla Tango Resina, no patches at time. Knowledge do passes Goya Gosa, not the carres and Tangaso, Joanna Katina, so Saulo Tani, Gitanga Saulo Tana, Calicali Soachiclini, Tandanyo Mondo Majata Parashiti. Tombani Gungol, Teni Logic, Getan Clea, or is anything, Nema Genchika Sondu, Tama Tongas, Tombani Zad, Pats a Keshachini Lams and Shantoni, Hakondro, Tistawani Maris, Tendi Passo, so Getan City, the Parish, long on a ratchet chair, the ratchet chairs on a Teni, Katsi Gom on the Teni, dance and the Chori, so dance the Mena, Teni no Maketo, Maritini, Teni Androna, Teni Goalitari Talam de Orezio.
So, therefore, since we don't have a lot of experience, we cannot explain much further than that in terms of emptiness and selflessness and so forth. So, in order to explain further than that, we need to have someone who have more experience in this topic. But if we are continuing with the topic of the class, so there is the disturbing emotions that come based on the grasping at the self, such as attachment and anger. So what are they in their nature? So the attachment is coming based upon the kind of thinking or feeling that, oh, I need this, I want this. And the anger is coming based on the experience of, oh, he's hurting me, he's doing something bad for me. So this kind of feelings comes. So this kind of feelings come based on the self-grasping, because there is that me, that I need that thing, or he hurts me. Like there is that me, which is the basis of all the feelings. But then, if you are going to look for that me, so slowly, by a daily basis, like continuously, if you are going to look and examine for that me, so slowly, you are going to have more kind of this feeling of that there is no solid I as we used to grasp it. And then slowly, we are going to kind of reach certain feeling. So just like my teacher said, so he said that this kind of realizing emptiness and all these things, so this is not something which is coming very quickly, or just like immediately I understand it, or like I understand emptiness or selflessness. No, this is something that we need to contemplate and reflect upon it in our daily life continuously. And then one time, like we are going to, if we going to contemplate about it continuously, so one time we are going to have this certain feeling of this selflessness, that selflessness after trying to look for this self for a lot of time. And then having this feeling, we can meditate upon it. And if we meditate upon it more and more, so we are going to have higher and better understanding of it. And based on a better understanding of it, we can eliminate all the disturbing emotions that come based on it. And if we are talking from the ultimate perspective, eventually also to be liberated from samsara.
So tini tanda te tana chu shepi nyomo tsawa ni pami tablam de tere shiata ko danzan me pa sona peti ta chi na jinga so ngel shewa raw me pille ta nyomo ngo kwang kwa tindi tsawa ni ni meni ta pa to reze gore ta tini jumba ni pan rawo chena nga so nyomo ngo nang tsawa che so danzan ngo nimbo temba mayim bajan chiti ni pan rawo cha da ni te cha de gore ndo cha ta kongro ni danzan de jumba tombo buma monitor ta ni jumba ni pan rawo chena do cha ta kongro ni te cha de gore.
Yeah, so therefore this is the presentation of the selflessness. And if you are going to understand the selflessness, so all the problems, the karma, the mental afflictions that comes based on this grasping in the self, if we are going to have good understanding of selflessness, so we can eliminate and extinguish them. So now this was the first stage. And the second stage now, after talking about self-grasping, we are going to talk now about the attachment, anger, and all the other disturbing and afflicting emotions that comes based on the ignorance, grasping at the self.
Lasso teni lasso na dia control ze atenzo nga so kan issue chi te ore teni ko danz tsawa ni salo mata na all control ro chi le ondi anga so control ro chi le ondi ko jamba chi nga so no pa muse che ya na ni aro gasa chi lo no pa che topo chi lo no pa che na mi chi lo no pa che teni chi lo no pa chi teni nga so lo control de la yongoti ta kyonji te so na lo te so lo ta lo ha cha mo bo so de ta chi depon ro chi che na kyonji na lo teni chi so de ti nyam le sa lo ta to na pe ya po yo sa re tanda nga so pa sho ni nga so no pa che on di ke nga lo no pa che so sa ni ko le tsu pa shiu chi za yo re kap te ti le sa lo ya po chi ta na kol ka kyoni yo ma re ze wo re kar ze di ko le jangwa yo ma re jangwa yo ta yo meta me ze na jangwa du ta mandu so so le sa lo chi ta da po re so control la vi kap so so le jangwa du ta mandu so control la vi kap so so le jangwa me na pa sho control la vi kap pa sho la jangwa yo ma jangwa me pi ni le kan che de wo ti ta kar ze na nga so ma ja vi kap sa ma pon te so le na ni tsu kundu ma to ma mi ki ma te so le ji ma na ni shira tsu gu man do ni ba chom tong ni che na ya ma pon te so le chom tong ni che chen ma mi ki ma te so le ni che che man do te na ja ma pon ta wo te do cha ta control be na control cha de control pa sho ra me ba nga la no che on di ta control in bi ta ni ba yo ma control tan do cha tan cha tong ja me ra nga no pa che ra che on di te so ko wan che che ni che ja re ko ka yo ma re nga ro control la vi ka li am la chi pa chi kya che ndu te nga so sam shi che te che to go ndu sam ni sam lo ten ji ta na Gyonjinal tablet testing some narrowly same depon rochil, and this sound lot on a partial control mazaya that's also simple yapoyon sarisa.
Okay, so then if we are not going to think from the perspective of the self-grasping ignorance, so if you're talking about anger, so this anger, how it comes, how it arises, this anger. So this anger arises when someone, for example, is hurting me, is hurting my family, hurting my friends, when someone is benefiting like the one who is hurting me, and so forth. So all these things, so they lead to this feeling of anger and restlessness. So if we are talking about what way we have to deal, what kind of ways we have in order to deal with this anger, if we are examining it from the perspective of Acharya Shantideva in his text, the Bodhisattva Deeds, the Bodhisattva Way of Life, so in one verse, there is the verse which is talking about how to deal with the anger. And the way to deal with the anger is thinking that the person that is harming me, the person that is inflicting harm upon me, he doesn't have any control over what he's doing or over his actions, because what is controlling the person who is hurting me, this is the anger or the afflicting emotions that he have. He totally doesn't have any control. And we can also think about it through the experience of our daily lives. For example, if I'm under the control of anger, so I don't have any control over it, I'll just act on the anger that I have, and then I'll do different kind of things uncontrollably. This is the same for the other person who is under the power of anger, under the force of anger. He doesn't have any control, and just like a general and his soldiers, so the general is the one who has the most control, the most authority, the one who is making decisions and so forth. The soldier themselves doesn't have a lot of authority or chances to make decisions and so forth. So this is the same with the one who is under the influence of anger and the anger itself. The anger is the one who is controlling. And therefore, what we should do, we should generate this kind of sense of understanding, or this kind of sense of empathy. Maybe it's a good word to use, I'm not sure. This kind of sense of understanding to the other, and then we can decrease the intensity of the anger that we have by understanding the other person that is going uncontrollably under the force of the anger.
So tani pendro chi jana nga so nyomba ni chi tsona nyomba ni chi nga so chi no pan chi chaona nga so shira control ngam ndo karchi ni control ngam ko semgu na cha yore sa ni dan nga so zopa gonto go la control shira lang ma te na je nga so chama semgu na cha ha chang je bo ndo cha control ni na je semgu na cha chimbo yo ma te nga so na cha ngo je che yo ma pa sho ni tsiang ngo je che ma ri nga control on di nal tsik ba ze yang control ngare pa control on tsiang control on ni control na cha korom ma se ya te control on te yin sha sha chi ni te le ka te cha ko sha sha chi ngaru so sa lo ta ka sa ta control na cha chimbo te che ri nyom ba ta chik pa chik kyang re control nyom ba te ti gyang ga sem chi ko re control ti so nyon chi na le sem chi ni te ya te ge jen ro re mu sem chi ka sa nyom ba ta chik pa re sam ni ten ti sa lo ta na te ni so control ma ja ten pe pen sare samgundu na nga so ngoni choni semguna sa yi gyacha gyari tan do cha da control ya to semguna sa ngna sa jirko sam a jang ni samari da tingwa ze je ni yo mare ja
So yes, so what we need to think further is that the other person, we can also think about instances when we see person which is kind of crazy. He's kind of an insane person, and when he's doing something bad towards us or something negative, we don't blame him. We have like this kind of very natural and instinctive understanding and trying to being empathic towards this person, because we know that he has like a certain mental illness. So we won't blame him because we know that he's under the influence of this mental illness and the mental problems that he has. In the same way, someone who is under the control of anger, he has the mental illness of anger. It doesn't have any kind of any kind of freedom to decide what he wants to do. So this is merely not recognizing that the other person is under the mental illness, but in the reality, there is no bigger mental illness rather than attachment and anger. When someone is under the control of anger, is under the biggest mental illness. So even though the mental illness of anger is shorter than mental illness of other people, like in general, when we're talking about like something psychotic or and so forth. So even though it's a bit shorter than the amount of time which someone is under the mental illness of something psychotic and psychological and so forth, rather than that difference, the anger and attachment is the biggest mental illness. And what we do in general in our society is that we just kind of not really thinking about the situation, just someone is getting angry on me, and then like I get angry on him, but I don't really stop and think to myself, oh, he's under mental illness, he has anger, like which is the mental illness that makes him to do things uncontrollably. So this is the way we should think, and through that we can decrease the intensity of anger.
That's what ni ta control ni bonda manda chi yore ta ngaro te ya pondra don so ngoni pa sho ta na san ne pzare san ni tindi sa lo ta chi che ane ni pa tel ta so do chang ra wo che on de ta do chang na chu na ma che sa do chang mi du pa gom go re ze tindi ga ta lan che so yore ka sa ka ni jumbo che yang di jumbo chen de pe ka sa mu sen ra wo che so me te pe ya pon chin ton so nga so na ge ndo chang se ya te ka re lo che yore ze na so de go du te go du ku yu go du mu go du se ni ta Chalanda mandal ndo cha kia yore sa chanda mandal ndo cha manda mandal ndo cha kia yore teni do cha kini teni so so tat go sam tamatel teni roma che ani sem na kangi shu chi za wo kap stil ato sam lo ya po chi tango ris tengal ni par goya chi rendu ya mendu sam lo chi tanda man che sa chi nga so ni par goya chi re dio maris rumo che kala pe jarson pena kala chi na nga so ni par goya re ni par goya re kala chi za me na nga so shi ro re te ni par goya ina kala ya po ta zu po ta kon chen po ta tenji go res ne te ni par go acha mares gitu che ya che tre ma to ni par pa yo mares te na jin ta na so le zayan to ya ta che on ngal tli zaya zga go andu diglo ya go andu kamba zga go andu mota ya go andu tenji da amda le ndo pa mo bo che ani kan ne che ngore tenji te yo na anju kri me na anju kri san ni ta Alungi par goya te choko jaya te dilo mancha chi ko ya ra ni de san kang ba chi yo son na ji ko ri ta so zo me na kan ten sa chi ni te ni ro chi ka sa lo ta to na te ni do cha ta man go ma ri ro ya ka ta la mi yo sa re ze te ni son so te pe ya pon chin ton so
Okay, so then therefore there are a lot of different kind of antidotes for anger, but the antidote that we talked about now is seeing the other person as someone who has this mental sickness, this mental illness, and out of that kind of generating a sense of understanding and understanding that he's just under the force of mental illness, and therefore there is no reason for me to be angry. So this is the antidote that we talked about now for anger. And now if you're going to the other one of the biggest disturbing emotions, attachment. So attachment, it is said that one of the most useful antidotes for it is meditating upon the kind of repulsive aspect or the ugliness of the object of attachment. And also lately there was a Yangten Rinpoche, so he came here to Shida and gave a talk. And when he gave a talk, he said something which is really, really true about attachment. So what he said about attachment is that as for attachment, so it is being a reason by having the thought of I need this, I need good car, I need good house, I need this, and so forth. And after not finding or not obtaining this kind of thing, so we get kind of disappointed, or we have the feeling of suffering out of the attachment. So what we need to do is to kind of understand like what we need and what we don't need. So we need to understand whether we really need these kind of things or we don't need this kind of thing. As for, if we give the example of food, so of course we need to have food, we need to fill our stomach and so forth. This is something which is necessary. But whether we need that the food will be very, very fancy, very, a lot of different details of the food, like so many different kinds, whether we need this? No, this is just in order to make things fancy. We don't have any kind of need. So in the same manner, if we bring the example of food like to other things in our life, such as cars, house, different kind of things that we have attachment for, so we need to have this question, whether we need this kind of thing or don't need this kind of thing. And what we need to have, we need to adapt this kind of attitude that whatever I have is okay. Like if I have this thing, is okay. If I don't need more like things than that, so if this thing that I have is kind of answering my needs, so I should be content with that and saying that this is okay, and it will make our mind very, very calm and relaxed.
So dopa kana tez ma to me na ya deki yore dopa ma kana katse yo na deki yo mari pe chijana jita mele ri pata we jina ta so kha koya tri mi ran re pate na mi re la ta ran le kolo tombo to kan tombo tri che mari ta ani koro sim ha jan gya chimbo ta sim sa lo tembo shi yo so sa desa chaupu ma to yo mari za ki lo ma to yo mari koya ta the number with the level to check on your summer and the top canal come jammy let Jan Jan Masiki Jare Lilies and Hakondo Gita Gita the thousand at Gita the Maroko non shoot on that so Pangarjani Garjani Tenigeni Tim said the Kipocini de Dere call Kipochia Cholokonagin at Sundro amigo Kipoyo Monzenchia Zaya Toya Desachiri could check it Nachi or Marta could sim good Yachosona. And you must say, Corrodeki Dembaki, not so young, but so chinat and the young meva yore, not so check in the yore, and also cheto, Marinato Chalo Chan in Dochakawangi, Desa Yapogo yore, Zaya Jimbo yore, the lawyer Pogo yore, only not showing Yamleze at Chalo Martini, so same Ganani, Nasalu Yachimbo, Pajaya, Karzegor, Dochachimbuchi, contra Chimbuchi, what did you tell Landry? Montakan.
So therefore, if a kind of desire, if a wish is being fulfilled, so our mind is going to be happy and relaxed. And if a desire or wish is not being fulfilled, so our mind is going to be very disturbed and unhappy. And therefore, we can also give other kind of example. For example, Milarepa. So Milarepa, he just sat in his cave most of his life, like for so many years, for such a long time, he just sat in the cave. Doesn't have a lot of very, very good conditions in terms of outdoor conditions. He didn't have very good place to stay at. He didn't have very fancy clothes and so forth. But in terms of his mind was very, very broad one. Like very, very, his way of thinking was very broad one, very not kind of narrow-minded of thinking. So therefore, he was very, very happy because he has this kind of inner happiness. So his life he just spent by meditating and kind of singing songs of realization, not just regular songs, but songs of which has the meaning of the Buddhist philosophy. So this is how he spent his life. And he was happy. And in general, we can also do this kind of things. But what we do usually is that we kind of depend more on the outer conditions. We need that, and so forth. And we don't really engage in spiritual practice and inner type of practice in order to gain happiness, like Milarepa did. And the Buddhism presentation, so what it says that the happiness it comes from within by taking care of our mind and eliminating this kind of disturbing emotions such as attachment, anger, and so forth. And through this kind of inner work, we can achieve happiness.
So tani the cheese at the so nyomongo kangi so chontan raw chi tele don le che ton raw joji tingol do don chi ayina ngaro le chi nyam nyo chi yo mare katina chi shede ka chi wor te na chapre yo mare ngishiya to normena gageli getun ke panzamboli le khand yore gageli getun nyam le cha khand yore ngishiya to normena jamba to so nyam le che tri ran chi ni jamba to so pen to atende yongore tri samni katina chi je te ka kore tri tin samjani tani
Okay, so therefore this was the topic for today. So the topic was what are the problems that arise from the disturbing emotions and the afflicted mind that we have, and what kind of remedy or antidote we can use in order to challenge or to eliminate this kind of mental afflictions and problems that we have while talking about self-grasping ignorance, attachment, anger, and so forth. So, therefore, as for me, I don't have a lot of, I cannot say that I have a lot of experience and a lot of understanding, but if I don't have any mistake in what I'm saying, so therefore, I can share it with others, and knowing that others using what I'm saying can develop themselves to the extent in which they can also benefit others by this knowledge and practice. Because today in the world, there are students which are better or know better than their teachers. There are this kind of situations in the world. So therefore, I think like that, and I'm not. This is what I think while talking about these topics.
So then there's that three ngats on your mom pizza and one injo. Dancing down to a chow down, control test and the Nimbo tens and the shiori, Sapancolona, Kiku, the Chadea, something Yomungo, the show some that take it deore, take Gola Nimbo, Yapochi tentos on a jump, but a range could purchase a grade.
Yeah, so therefore we talk today about the root mental afflictions, the self-grasping, the ignorance, the self-grasping ignorance, the anger, and the attachment. So just like the drawing of the samsara wheel, so at the middle of the samsara wheel, there are the three representations of these three types of mental afflictions. So if one can really practice the antidotes in order to eliminate and extinguish these types of mental afflictions, so all the other types of mental afflictions will not come based on them, and one will have, will be able to cut off the roots of the afflictions.
That's the introduction.
Yes, so now if someone has a question, so we can have a Q&A session.
Tjinan kushka. Narang peda jumbo chungsung. Belcher tiwa chunjung chik. Inchkila tila Okay, so we were talking about how we need to examine the difference between what we need and what we don't need, right? And so there's this, we have attachment to all sorts of things, but very few do we really need, right? So how do we deal with attachment to what we need in order to stay alive or protect our body and our health? This can be like just a very basic primal, like carnal reaction, as well as wanting to protect our body, our precious human birth, like this.
Ani te kerangi rangazo gosatan nazo te yewache goresa sombeba. Ani chasa nazo te yog gosate so kandis modin chetu bire perna lupo te sunkyop chegi chetu na te mutune netso chetu biegi chetu na te kandis yewache na te nie gosate so modin chetu biresa.
Ta kandila goro ta so parche Japan dog depon siena soso manchesa samlo rendwa samlo ngol ndrit samna pe kyopo ndawo chi chena ya nga so goya ta ta ndrit yor imagine kala chi ni chi zaira ti kan la diglot sa cha to sa ina tang sa ina ma cha chi goya yo tni chi yo na Te desa shoshochi yo, ta desa mesan da likan de ore ta koso chi chani ta ran ring de ore ma seki ya. Lapa te chu chen ke chi na tili yan kare. Ko kati na nang sablo yar ki ta to ta ore mungu chalo. Ta te nga so kin so na chi on di te che to yo mari. Ko la ngali ya chin du san ngali ya tili ya chi ko tili zu chin du san ngali te ten jen che son di parishi. Aso ndo pa khan chi ya mar tanda zambulin tu so zambulin ndo pa ma khani zano chalo shi li chi ta ke che de do chalo shi chi kariyo ta na lin che jen bandu ta mandu sin ando pa ha chang che thang ni ro ten che so na ten ta yo mar ta so go sam lo kya chong an ro ma sa chi pap to na ta de lo ma cha cham chi ta khala cho ko ma to cham chi yo na pa shin jung ro ma se ki ateli ma na te san ten ji cha bo de shi ta che ko mar chen so na ta quand ça de ça ya pour le chita ça ya te nyen ta che teni chi ona teni shu chi go ndu ma sa ni lo de tena par chi cha da mo ndo cha so shu chi ma ngo cha ya pen to yo sa ri sa chi so me ta nga so ta ta ri mo bo she sa ta ke da ko yo chi ko sa ma so le ma sa ri chena cho ko ya ya chi ta de lo ko yo ta so 제토 니치 있나 저거 지금 마토아 지다 들로 마차 지오나 대잠게 안 그래 이나요 티람들 든지 따라 제고 말이다 깔라 컨셉서 그 쇼전지서 레카치 제대고 지 레카텔 테니텔 파피게 지지냐니 로로 데데나 다틀리 칸르고 틀리 칸르고 삼나 반조고 쇼르다 반조야기 드근조야요 요게레 이나요 so 데킬레 드 펜토 두문데 데타고레.
Okay, so basically we can say that if I have a place in which I can in which I can sleep well, in which I can eat well, I have like enough clothes in order for me not to be cold, we can say that it's okay. But we don't have to stay like at the very, very minimal. Like we can also have like a bit beyond that. But the main thing that we should check is where our mind at. So for example, if you are having like a certain work or like a certain amount of wealth and so forth, so we need to check like whether we have this kind of competitive mind or thinking like whether I need more than that, and so forth, all the time kind of being satisfied and have calm mind and relax like with what I have. And if I have like this kind of, if I have a certain amount of wealth and my amount of wealth is increasing, but I have like this kind of sense of satisfaction, so it is okay. But if beyond that I also have this kind of desirous attachment to want more than that and kind of competitiveness, like I need more than that, so this is something that we need to pay attention of in terms of talking about this matter.
Lojin rawa chi shena a topo chi yoro ko chige ka mombo ndore Europe da arin rawa tni mombo ndore ko la premba momba to so panjo yaji chin ro checken chi ya la han sa chi na na so samyen li dipan rawa tni ndo ina muntu so le sembal kangi chin du ni ya tseli ki pa chi ko so le kangi ta ta shero chi ko so nye de na ko so cheta chen do kangi she sa koromara ndi kangi chin du zere tani na so yakar lo chole yang tagara ko ti tonsi te sondro yenzer tonsi te sondro ti tonsi te so pekyo bo yore te ke acha chil tani na ko chosan kamba te so ekyo bo shu re ta tila sab ching ma do chi wa mare ti che ti msel kalindo es kale chi ma che bo yore la so ya tila sab re shlo pani pa ta na tila sab re tina tila sab che kayo na pe bo yore la sonza dekhe te ziyade sevliyor te saboro chiri chalo panjo yaji kanzo na so semson che ma ndo pa khan mena onin zambule arita Europe tra panjo ti gan le shon yo che marno ina sem ne chimbo hajan de zin ha sa so moni yo in sero ke ta zila min che marno.
Yes. So if I'm going to say kind of story or some kind of story that I have, so my friend of mine, he used to go a lot for Europe, for other foreign countries. So when he went to other foreign countries, he used to tell me that these countries are so developed in terms of the outer conditions, in terms of the technology, the infrastructures, and so forth. So they were very, very developed. But if you look at the people themselves, so you can see they have like such big problems that inconceivable in like in our mind, like how big the problems there are, even though like the problems may be small. So it was so like beyond the proper limit of what we think of in general, like the problems, like the intensity of the problems that they had. So, and then he said that if, for example, one is going to the south of India and seeing that the conditions there are very, very poor. They are very, very poor. Like it's very, very dusty everywhere. But if you ask the people themselves, like how they feel, so they say, "Oh, I'm okay. Like I'm happy." Like, "Are you happy?" "Yes, I'm happy." Like even though having this kind of conditions. So therefore, we can say that happiness is something which is dependent on the way of thinking of the mind. If we can kind of restrain the mind or to control our mind, this is something which can be the help us to gain happiness. So also we can see in the world there is no other country which or like have better external conditions than USA, Europe, and so forth. But still there are so many big problems in terms of mental health and so forth. So online, do you have the one who is online? Do you have a certain question? I don't see who it is.
I guess it's just me. I don't have any questions. Thank you for asking.
Okay, so therefore, we are going to finish the class. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, goodbye. Thank you.